patrons, welcome back to another tutorial series. So in this one I thought I would go through a couple of things that I think you guys should consider before you even jump into doing a drawing, whether that's in colour pencil or graphite, charcoal, whatever it is. I'm going to be talking through some things that I've seen quite a lot of you asking in the comment section. So the first one that I'm going to be going through is how exactly do I kind of decide what I want to include in my sketch outline. So you can see on the left hand side is the final sketch outline for this drawing that we're going to be doing in the next tutorial series. I picked this one because it's a different skin tone. You guys wanted to see facial hair, and also I've had a lot of requests to do more afro type hair as well. So I thought this would fit into kind of making me do all three of those things. So what I want to go through is I've got the reference photo here, and I want to talk to you guys about how I decide based on the reference photo what I want to include in my sketch outline when I'm either transferring it, or if you're doing it freehand, or if you're using the grid method. How do you decide what lines to include and what details to include to help you when it comes to the colouring stage? So the first things that I like to include is the main outlines, and then I focus on main shadows or highlights that I want to include. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a white pastel pencil, and I'm going to use this to go around this reference and draw out what lines I have included and what I will be including when I do the sketch. So I always like to start with the eyes. I sketch them out first, and so the first thing that you'll want to do is the main shape of the eye. So the top, the tear duct, and this bottom bit. It's going to look very strange when I've got all these lines on, but bear with me. So this is just to kind of show you, if I was to trace this out, what lines I would do. So that would be the first line, and then I would do either side of the iris to get that shape, and then I would also get in the little highlights as well. Then I would also do the top crease, and this is the same for any sort of portrait. So you do the shape of the eye, the tear duct, either side of the iris, and any highlights. And if the pupil is really showing, then do the shape of the pupil as well. Obviously you won't be doing it with white pastel. I'm just using this to show you guys a bit clearly over the top of the reference photo how you can do that. So then I would also do the main crease and the main bag under the eye, a line for that. And then I'll also include any lines for like wrinkles or creases, so like smile lines on the eye. So like up here, you've got a few different lines which I would include as well. So anything that's going to help create that look of the expression there is in the reference photo, because you'll want to convey that same emotion. I'd also include the inner corner of the eye, and also when it comes to the eyebrow, I just like to block out the main shape. I don't block out every single eyebrow hair because we're just going to end up covering over, but I do like to get in the general shape of the eyebrow. So then I would do that exact same thing on the other side. So again, get in the shape of the eye and that tear duct. Look at how the eye shape curves. And then again, either side of the iris and those little highlights. Again, top crease, anything where you can see those creases, any creases like creases around the mouth, you would want to do as well. So again, that bag under the eyes and any little smile lines that help with the expression, and also the inner corner of the eye. And then for the shape of the eyebrow, I just go around the general shape. I don't do too many details. And this would be the same for every single portrait. Those are the areas around the eyes which I would do, which I would draw in. So that isn't just for this one, that is kind of the thing that I do for all of them. So remember, at the moment, I'm not going around all the highlights and shadowed contoured areas. At the moment, I'm just getting in the general outlines, and then we'll be going through and doing markings for the highlights and shadows. So now we've got the basic outlines done for the eyes. Let's go in for the nose. And so I would go around the general shape of the nose. And you can see also, you can see a bit of this nostril. So I would do that. I'm not going all the way up here because these are more of the defined lines. And so there's a bit more of a defined edge up here and around here. But mainly this is just soft. I'm going for harsh sort of outlines at the moment, the main shapes of the nose and every feature, not these subtle shadows. We'll do them later. So now we've got the shape of the nose in, let's move to these creases around the nose. So any sort of deep creases you want to get in those sort of sketch lines so that you know where they are, because these are so important in getting the expression right and making it look not sort of weird. If you don't include these, then you might get a very weird looking drawing and unnatural, because the face naturally creases when it's smiling. So just go over these main creases that you can see. And just looking around, so you've got a bit of a defined edge there and around the eyes here. So also, if we look at the mouth, we want to go around the top of the lip, get that shape in. And the bottom. So the main outline of the lips, we want to get that shape in. So also the bottom lip. And the bottom of the bottom lip. So I'm just looking for the harsh sort of outlines in the main shapes. Now, you'll also want to draw in the teeth. I don't think you're going to be able to see too much of this pencil, but because it's white and the teeth are white, but I'll just trace around each of the shapes of the teeth. Try not to do this too dark because the teeth are really light. So whenever you're doing your sketch, make sure that you're doing it as light as possible. So now for the stubble and the facial hair, I'm not drawing in every bit of hair for the sketch. I just want to get in the main shape. So very much like I did with the eyebrow, I just go around and sort of indicate to myself where the facial hair is. So let's sketch out all of these areas. We will be lightening up the sketch, so don't worry if it looks a bit strange at the moment. These are just guidelines to help you when it comes to your colouring stage. So as you can see, now you know where the facial hair is going to be and you can fill that in later. So now if we move on to doing the shape of the face, so for that I just go around here, go around the hairline. I don't do this in a solid line, I kind of create little natural looking bits of hair, so it's not just one solid edge. But I use this to create the shape of the face as well. And again, I'm just going around those main shapes, those main outlines. So now we've got the outline of the face. Now moving on to the ears, you'll want to do obviously the main outline for the ears, but get in any of these harsh edges, any of these little detailed lines, these creases, these contours, get them in. So any harsh lines that you see, get them in. So I'm just going around any harsh edges I see, any defined creases and lines. Just like that, and the same for the other ear. So do the main outline first. So the main outline. You can also get in where that earring is going to be. So main outline's done. We know the border of the ear. Now get in these main inner parts of the ear. There we go. So now all of our face is pretty much sketched in. Let's get in the neck. Let's get in the clothing. You don't have to do lots of details for this, just the main shapes. Okay, and lastly we need to do the hair. So for this I would just go around the edge of the hair. I wouldn't do lots of detail because it's going to get lost. It's going to be pretty pointless to put in all of the detail anyway. So I just go loosely around the edge. Try not to do it in a solid sort of line. Try to look at the little bumps. And so that's basically it for the main outlines. Now let's look for any shadows that we want to block in. So any sort of contours in the facial structure that makes it kind of look like the person, any added facial structure. So firstly, the shadows that I look for are on the side of the face, so sort of that cheekbone area. And so any sort of harsh shadows that you can see, any shapes, go around them as well, mark them in. So you could do this slightly lighter so you know they're not the main outlines. So like here, there's a harsh sort of shadow. So I want to get that in, and I want to get in that area that's a bit lighter here so that we know this is where the shadows are going to be. That's where it's a bit lighter, and that also curves around just above the eye a bit as well. So also, you know, you've got this shadow here, and on this side there's also a bit of shadow, and then this bit's a bit more highlighted and it curves up by this cheek area. So I'm also just getting in any of the shadows. So again, there's a shadow up here to the side of the forehead. Get them in. And so also just get in that shadow for the nose. Shadow just above the eyes. And this just makes your job nice and simple when it comes to the colouring stage, because you know where all of these shadows are meant to be. So just looking around, we do want to get in these creases actually down here for the neck. There's a bit of shadow under here. Just looking around, see if there's any other shadows or any other little details that I want to add for the shadows. I think that's about it. So the final thing that I'll do is I would look for highlights that I want to include. So for example, there's quite a bright highlight here on the nose, so I'll circle that so I know that that's there. Also a highlight in the middle here of the nose. There's a highlight just right in this center of the forehead, but also there's kind of a lighter, well, a less extreme highlight on the forehead, but that is the focal point of the highlight. There's a highlight here, just a bit there, and it kind of curves up. You can add all of the little highlights if you want. But I think that's pretty much it for the sketch outline that I would include. Obviously, if you don't want to include this much, then you don't have to, but I've had a lot of questions from people asking how I decide what I want to include in my sketch, because my sketches seem a lot more detailed than just outlines. And so I think this is the key to really ensuring that when you go into the colouring stage that you're really sure about what you've got to do, and it just makes it a lot easier if you've got these main shadows marked in and the shapes of them as well. The facial structure in terms of shadows and highlights is just as important as getting the proportions right. So anyway guys, I really hope that helped you when you go into doing your future sketches. This can be applied when you're doing transferring, grid method. For example, if you want to do the grid method, you could get your reference photo, do this on it, you know, use a white pencil, just go over what lines you want to include like this, and then put your paper next to it, and then you can just grid over it and use these lines that you've drawn out to help create your sketch. It might simplify it down in your mind to just see the outlines that you want to include. So this can be applied to any sort of drawing method. But anyway guys, I really hope this helped you out. In the next part, we're going to be talking about paper to use and how to choose the right paper for what you want to do. But I will see you guys in the next part. Bye everybody.